Nigerians who are determined to show themselves capable of, how do you say, survival or making a mark. And you see them going through all manner of things, doing all sorts of things that are legal. Selling recharge cards, selling phones, starting from even the basest of positions. They just want to see themselves grow. They just want to make an impact, to support their families, to live a life that has been given to them by God and all of that. And then you find them certain times come across certain situations that cost their lives, as painful as that may be. Case in point, the young man that was allegedly killed, I don't know whether it's accidental discharge or whatever, in the Delta State, Asaba to be precise, and the youth there took it upon their heads and protested, blocking the road, and they were carrying the corpse with them, as painful as that may be. Sometimes you begin to wonder how these things tend to happen. The story around is that he refused to pay 100 naira.
Bribe.
100 naira. 100 naira is what's cost his life. Some people will say, when you get to these kind of places, if you can't afford it, please just, or if you can't afford it, the way you respond, your manner of approach to the people who are demanding for this bribe, as illegal and bad as that may be, sometimes the other side also could be the way we, as I say, soft answer turns away wrath. But that is not in any way justifying the killing of this young man. It's not acceptable in any way. That because of 100 naira, you take somebody's life, and I honestly hope that whoever did this will be caught and brought to justice completely.
Well, it's coming on the heels of the conversation which we had yesterday, and I remember, we're talking about the police receiving, is it a standard of operation, standard operating procedure, a new set of SOPs yes. Being received, worked on in collaboration with the UNDP. And I recall that you and I talking about professional policemen and those who are not so professional in the force. You had experienced somebody in the police who, surprised you, and you met this person on the road. And I also gave an experience of, how it was that the job, the diligence of a couple of policemen kept my family safe. And we were regular, before anyone thinks, we're regular citizens. My father was a regular worker. We're not anybody special. We didn't move about with security aids or etc. And I also recall Bukola saying that, sorry, those are usually the exception, not the rule. And it is incidences like that, incidences like this, that remind us of the reality that these professional policemen whom we have, whom we fondly remember, are usually the exception, not the rule. The rule oftentimes are people like this policeman who is said to have shot and killed a man who was just going about his business in Asaba. It's really very painful because it's coming on the heels of so many other killings. We've seen that about Balanle Rahim happening in Lagos. The fact that an officer or a policeman is currently being tried in a court of law hasn't seemed to send any message to the remaining people in the force holding guns on the road that you need to wield this weapon with care. And so there are very, very, big questions as to how drastic does the change that needs to happen, how drastic does it need to be, and how quickly it needs to happen. Because we cannot continue like this, Nyota. We cannot continue to lose innocent lives at the hands of the people who are supposed to protect these lives. It is truly a very heart-rending story, especially when you hear that this man was in the vehicle with his wife. It's no longer a situation of he was allegedly killed. He was killed. The alleged will now be whether he did it intentionally or he did it, willingly, because he claims that it was an accidental discharge. And, what we know, what the rest of the public seems to be saying, is that he willfully shot this man in the head. Nyota, I am still trying my best to wrap my head around it, but I hope that this is one case that the police IG, I know that they usually have a process a procedure, you know, to handle things like this? I know that there will be an orderly room trial. He might be dismissed, and then, you know, he goes to face a court of law in which he can go and plead his innocence, or to, you know, to say, oh, I did not intentionally kill the person. But I think that given the severity, given the circumstances under which we currently operate, the distrust for the Nigeria police, the fact that, you know, this sort of extremities have been decried before now, the fact that, you know, police brutality is still a thing. I mean, we had a major protest that grounded this country just a few years ago, about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, going to 3 years now. I think in October it will be 3 years. I think that the police inspector general needs to make example of cases like this, not because he's prejudging the policemen or not listening to their own side of the story, because you also need to be careful not to demoralize the rest of them who are in the force, but to send home a message that this sort of acts will not be tolerated. Their weapon is given to them to protect good people from bad people, not to kill good people in the course of trying to get whatever it is that they want to get. So I'm hoping that, you know, there will be a message passed home, you know, through the example of this man, that the police takes this sort of matter extremely serious. I heard the Commissioner of Police saying something to the effect that nobody can hide this. We're going to, you know, be on top of it. We don't intend to shield him. We don't intend to protect him, because it would have been really, it would have been disastrous if the man was brought out yesterday in front of the mob. The mob would have had him, you know, so you have to commend the fact that they were able to still be able to placate, or, you know, calm them down, to be able to, you know, to be able to ensure that the law takes its due course. But I want to believe that those in authority of the police would seize the opportunity to continue to send home a message to the rank and file of the police that this sort of things, this sort of situations are totally unacceptable within the Nigeria police. Kayode and Bukola.
Well, I mean, listening and watching that story yesterday was heartbreaking for me on lots of levels, really. Seeing the youths protesting with his corpse, and you could see the anger, the anguish, the sadness in their voices. I mean, I think for a lot of them, the thinking was, this could have been me. Because when you think about it, I mean, this happened, according to the report by the police, at 9:30 a.m. I mean, that's morning. People are going about their businesses. And I mean, he was shot by the police, and it's important to actually put the names out there. This young man, Onyeka Ibe, was sadly killed in that process. And listening to the inspector, Ebri Ubi, trying to recount what happened, I mean, I didn't quite understand, saying that he heard some voice from a certain distance, some kilometers away, saying, I'm going to take your gun and shoot you, that his belt, and I mean, that was the interview that was done for the inspector, Ebri Ubi, yesterday, and then that the belt of the gun got into the trigger, and then I mean, it was heartbreaking on a lot of levels for me, especially with the reports that it's unconfirmed that he had just gotten married some months ago. That's Onyeka Ibe that was killed, and this has put his family, his wife, into mourning over 100 naira. It's important again to just reiterate that yes, the police in Delta State has released a statement. They have said that the inspector has been arrested. He will be prosecuted speedily, that there will be internal disciplinary measures, including criminal prosecution. And a lot of people cast their minds back, as you said, guys, to the case of the lawyer in Lagos who was killed on Christmas Day, Bolanle Rahim. And some days before that, I think about 2 weeks or more before that, you recall that Gafar Buraimo was also killed. And these cases are still in courts. There is nothing definitive yet. And this is 3 months after that. So in terms of getting justice is another huge talking point entirely, because this man has been killed. That is it, really. And you expect that justice will be done ASAP, but it takes quite some time. I understand that the process needs to be done right, but I mean, look at that mob. Some of them were even saying, we want to see the man responsible for this. We want to see the man. You understand that, you know, the emotions will be high. So it's important to see how these cases are handled such that, one, we don't see it happening again, and also that the people can trust the police. Hey, we're just talking about police reforms. I mean, I'm getting emotional there because this could have been anybody, really.
Yeah, Kayode, you know, just as emotional, just as, you know, disheartened as you are over the story this morning. As journalists, as broadcasters, one of the very few things that we look forward to is when we come to work every day, we'll get to read good news. But unfortunately, that is not the case. Just yesterday, we were speaking about police reforms, and I recall I wasn't quite optimistic yesterday, and today it happens to be for good reason. And, you know, I like the way Nyota started this morning when he talked about how no bigger storm, no storm, however big, can stop the determination of Nigerians, the resolve of Nigerians, the resilience of Nigerians to go out there and make something for themselves. You know, life is hard already in Nigeria. Many are trying to make ends meet, particularly those beneath the rung of the social ladder. There are many, you know, on the highways who are, you know, doing street trading. There are many recharge card sellers. There are many phone sellers, that's like this young man. There are many who are grilling plantain, corn, to send their children to school. And, you know, when they interface with men of the, you know, security agencies, it's supposed to be, you know, in a seamless, you know, interaction where, as they tell us, the police is your friend, but this always happens not to be the case, especially in this case, in the case of this young man who is a phone seller. It's so heartbreaking that he just happens to have gotten married. You know, that's amid the difficulty. The young man is trying to find some form of joy. So it goes back to what we were talking about yesterday. Taking a second look at the needs of our security agencies, the reforms of our security agencies, the rules of engagement. You know, we haven't recovered from the killing of Omobolanle Rahim in December 2022, and there is news to the effect that, you know, this police officer who allegedly committed the act has lost bid to stop his prosecution. So it suggests that, you know, that trial is losing steam already. You know, but this is something that was conducted in open glare, and evidence is there. So what is happening to the judicial process that is supposed to see to, you know, the punishment of that young man, such that it sends a message of deterrence to other, you know, bad eggs within the force, such that in the future that will not happen again. At least to a very large extent, it would have been curtailed. So these are the issues that we're faced with, you know, with our security agents. These issues need to be reviewed as soon as possible, and we cannot finish this conversation. We won't close this conversation without also calling out the force. At the time of the killing of Omobolanle Rahim, there was a talk to the effect that, you know, such things happen within the force, and such erring police officers may have committed the act in the past in other states of the Federation, and then there's some form of cover-up. They are transferred to other states, and, you know, they just continue business as usual, and then they happen to commit the act yet again. We hope that in the case of this police officer that has committed this dastardly act, such will not be the case. The trial will be fastened as much as possible, and you know, the due punishment will be meted out, and we will not have to come back to this table to talk about this again. We commiserate with the family of this young man who has been killed, and of course of another young man who was also extrajudicially killed, also in Delta State, I believe from a family of Ogorodi or something like that, in the month of March. Well, I guess we'll just hope that we'll have to talk about this again next time. Nyota and Malkwe.
Sad situations, sad stories, but I do believe that the good out there actually outweighs the bad in the society. There's more good out there than there is bad. The bad elements cannot win. The truth is this: no matter how dark a room might be, just bringing a tiny bit of light the room brightens up and darkness flees. So if you're good, continue to hold on to the good that you do and do not let yourself be put down. Indeed, nothing out there can kill that which is coming from within you. So you decide what it is you want to put out there and be that light that you want to see everywhere we go. And as sad as that story might be, we do commiserate with the family of this young man who's lost his life, and we hope that the police will get to the bottom of this as quickly as possible, as they do with other cases of extrajudicial killing that we've had across the country in the recent times and even before now. Having said that, okay.
Well, I think it's time for us to go to the papers. You know, much as you were just saying something about how no matter how bad a situation is, you always see something good. I think one of the things you can see that is good on this matter is the fact that young people, not just young people, but people in general, demanded justice on behalf of this young man. People will not just see something happening and, you know, look away. They really took it upon themselves to make sure that, you know, they are demanding answers of the Nigerian police. But we go to the papers now.
We're starting to look at the papers, some of the dailies today with the Vanguard newspaper, and that headline, I guess part of the conversation we had yesterday, DMO, why government debt is rising as LCCI others list ways out. Remember the conversation we were having yesterday about managing of the debt. As DMO explains why public debt is growing, LCCI advocates equity financing, other revenue strategies, higher level of fiscal discipline needed. Nasima, problems overspending, not revenue generation. Adonri, we need political will to trim size of government. CPPE, these are all riders to that headline. And indeed, a lot of Nigerians will be hoping to get some, hey, is something really happening in this? Are we looking at cutting down the cost of governance? Someone says overspending, not revenue generation. Overspending in what direction? Is it spending in the wrong things or overspending in the right things? Again, clarifications need to be put out there. But that's where it continues on page 5. Below here, Obasanjo writes the UK court pleads for Ekweremadu wife. And that writer extols Ekweremadu's virtues, hopes he will learn from his travels. That story you'll find on page 9. And some will call the former president the letter writer. Well,
it's certainly one that, you know, people will say perhaps, you know, a letter from him might be able to help them get mercy, you know, instead of the full weight of the law falling on their family. I mean, sure. Well, let us hope that it's able to bring out some positive outcome.
I hope so too. Beside that picture, Easter, FG declares Friday, Monday public holidays. Some people will be smiling at that one, but Mark, you and I are here. We're not going nowhere. And the universities are going to get about 320.3 billion intervention funds from TED Fund. That's on page 8. Talk about funding for education. And that's it from the Vanguard.
Well, the Guardian newspapers has this very troubling story on the front page, something that should give those who are looking for revenue something to mull on. Neighbors feet fat on Nigeria's poorly funded, inefficient seaports. So just in case you're wondering, that's what the Guardian has on the front page for you this morning. Neighbors feet fat on Nigeria's poorly funded, inefficient seaports. Local ports get 2 billion naira budgetary allocations in 8 years. Ports recovering with current reforms. That's according to the MPA boss. So you find details on page 6 of the paper. You also see the stories on politics. Afenifere Igbo leaders tackle Mohammed over treason, poll claims. Somewhere on page 6. At the bottom there, Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt slowing regional growth, says World Bank. Opposition parties plot to produce rep speaker. It's on page 30 of the paper. I recall Buki, mentioning the fact that in their minority, opposition actually makes majority. So who knows what can happen as a result of that. But look at page 30 for details. They also have an editorial this morning, INEC, an imperative of financial accountability. It's also on their front page. We'll leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
We'll take a look at the Nigerian Tribune with this one. Subsidy removal palliative. FG gets $800 million from World Bank. Says 50 million Nigerians to benefit. So if you do the math, 800 divided by 50.
What do you get?
You get $16 each. So that's,
how much is $16?
Let's say about 12,000 naira, depending on just what exchange rate you're using. If you're using 750, but if you're using 400, hey, that's almost
thank
half.
you for that breakdown, Kaidu, because I was taking a second look and second thought, about the story. So for how long? What's the duration of this sum, and how will it be spread?
Yeah.
And then what is the place of fuel subsidy after the release of these funds? So should subsidy remain till June? Because from the 2023 budget, subsidy is supposed to cover up until June, but the federal government is already advocating that subsidy should begin to go from the month of April.
Or at least they're preparing for June, or phasing it out. But it's important to get the proper details of this. Is it going to be cash really? Is it as simple as, the calculation I just did? Hey, don't worry, we'll be getting more information for you on that one. Page 2 has more details, though, in the meantime.
Exactly, that's our job.
Absolutely. And you see, court stops Labour Party chairman, 3 others from parading themselves as national officers. And then there was another court ruling, I think from Edo State, stopping the party from suspending, the national chairman. So it looks like the legal fireworks are in full swing within the Labour Party. I'll just give you one more from the Nigerian Tribune, and just at the top corner, Naira swap hardship, Buhari leaving on a sour note. It's coming from Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka. Let's leave it there for the Nigerian Tribune.
And flip to Daily Independent. Of course, it also leads with, the fuel subsidy story. The federal government's success at securing $800 million from the World Bank as palliative to 50 million Nigerians. Away from that one now, let's go to, the next story just at the bottom of the big story. Nigeria's economy won't crumble if oil dries up today. That's ascribed to the NEPC boss. And just in case you need more details, you'll find them on page 29 of Daily Independent. True, but how well are we preparing for that time if ever oil dries up? What are we doing about economic diversification? A term as old as I am, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, away from that, the next one is very sad, on the same wavelength of the beginning of our conversation this morning. Kogi attack, 10 killed, 50 houses razed. That's ascribed to a witness. That's a continuation of our conversation from 2 days ago. So what's happening in Kogi? What's happening in Kaduna? Why is there no consequence, for brazen attacks on communities, on villages? Why are people displaced of their properties, of their belongings, and sent to untimely graves? This is really sad. What's the value that we place on human life? Why are security agents so helpless in the face of these continuing attacks? We need answers. It can't be said enough. But take a look at the next one. Rivers APC, SEC suspends chairman, legal advisor, others. Disowns Amechi over comment on Tinubu. Well, the internal wranglings in the All Progressives Congress in that state continues, even amid the continuing quest of the governorship candidate to secure his mandate. And just the last one.
To challenge the result of that election, it would seem.
Well, yeah. And the last one before we exit Daily Independent, organ harvesting plot. Obasanjo, as former president, writes, UK court seeks clemency for Ikweremadu wife. Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
No reading.
And the New Telegraph is the next one here. And the FG secures $800 million World Bank facility to fund fuel subsidy removal. Subsidy removal palliatives. That story continues on page 2 and 4. So it looks like we're finally going to see the subsidy go away. But see, the writer spent $823.3 billion on fuel subsidy in 9 weeks. Naira there. Lender lowers Nigeria's 2023 growth forecast to 2.8%. As FEC approves 36.2 billion naira for customs. Okay, 16.3 billion for NPC, that's Nigeria National Population Commission. 277.57 billion as tax relief for BUA to construct 4 roads in Kwara. More details you'll find on page 4. This is the outcome of the Federal Executive Council meeting yesterday. Just above that, this one, I'll be as far from Abuja as possible after handing over. President Buhari is talking there.
He keeps saying
with the rider, nation's unicorns valued at $7.5 billion. Pantami, that's on page 2 and 5. Apparently he's determined to see that he's far away from Abuja. Come down to the bottom here of this picture of the Vice President at the event yesterday for the environment. Obasanjo writes, UK court, that story again, pleads leniency. Gas distribution, FG approves 25 years validity for license holders. Whoa. That you'll find on page 3. You know that matter, the gas, is it compressed natural gas for fuel project? We've been talking about that. I mean, a couple of friends and I thinking, how far? I mean, this was launched in, I think, year 2020 or thereabout. What's the situation? How many vehicles have been converted? I understand in Benin, for instance, a lot of the taxis there run on gas. But, you know, the federal government had promised about 250,000 vehicles to be converted free of charge at that time. And we'll get more details on that.
Well, interestingly, I don't know what if you had any reservations, but I had reservations when I saw that at that time.
I was looking forward to it.
It would have been good, but I was wondering just how consistent we're going to be. Was this gas always going to be available, or was this something that, you know, people will have to look for? Assuming you traveled out of a place like Abuja, for instance, that is, if the gas is always available in Abuja, if you were to travel out of it, would you be able to readily get this gas? Well, there have been very interesting reviews from those who were brave enough to do it at the time when the federal government was offering, you know, to do it, I think, for free or for a very small fee.
Yeah.
They have very good reviews of using it from that time till now. So it'll be interesting to see whether more people will be willing to take it on as a result of that.
One of those reviews,
yeah,
they spend less for fuel than they used to using that. But anyway, you go try it out for yourself. But that's it from New Telegram.
Well, take a look at leadership this morning, and they have this, a post-election crisis, conflicting Edo FCT court orders on settled Labour Party. Fate of National Chairman Abure hangs in the balance. Court injunctions cripple party activities. Ebonyi Labour Party governorship candidate accuses Abure of forgery. So you find this, why does this happen all of the time? You know, you come out of an elections and then there's now trouble within a political party. Is it being sponsored? Big questions. Page 4 is where you find details. Look on top of the nameplate here, Sam Amuka tasks Media Commission on professionalism. You also see on page 19, subsidy removal. Federal government secures $800 million World Bank funding for palliatives. I think that, you know, there needs to be a lot of attention paid to this. And I don't think that the outgoing government should be the one to disburse the palliatives. They shouldn't be the one to do it. If they have left subsidy removal for the incoming government, I think that alongside their report and alongside whatever it is that they have been able to secure, or whatever their plans were. They should leave it to the incoming government to handle.
But why would they be distributing palliatives when the subsidy is not removed until June?
The big question. So I'm hoping that, much as, Mrs. Ahmed was given the details yesterday, I was just saying, I hope you are not the ones implementing this. That's just all I was thinking, because right now it doesn't look like there's a lot of trust for those who are implementing programs as they're about to leave office. Big questions as to the cost that certain things have been implemented for. So let us hope that, they've secured the loan. Let it just be there, cooling on until the next government takes over. You have a number of other stories there. Outgoing UK envoy, I love Nigerian food, dance, I'll be back. So she says, so you see her there in that very cheerful smile with the president of the country.
Food and dance.
Interesting, yeah. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Well, Daily Trust has this one. National Assembly leadership as a focus. Scheming as 16 aspirants push for zoning. Open contest. Southern lawmakers want Senate presidency zoned to region. Allow us to choose our presiding officers in Tume. I'm ready to sacrifice my ambition for a Southern Christian. Musa. No special committee on zoning. APC. So amidst all of the palliatives talk, one of the other issues, there's this scheming, as the Daily Trust puts it, for the National Assembly leadership. And I'd just like to point your attention to this one. It's a report, according to a report, NMPC failed to account for 102 billion naira oil delivery to refineries. So, page 25, she'll uncover all that for you. And I'll just also mention this one because it's important for the education sector. 1.1 billion naira for each varsity as Buhari approves 320 billion naira intervention fund. So is that the end to the ASU strikes or end to the challenges we've seen in that sector? Big question. But that's the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Yeah, interesting conversation. The Daily Trust starts with Kayode, the politics of the National Assembly leadership, even as we begin to prepare for handover. And, there was quite an intriguing conversation on that one yesterday on Politics Today. So you can catch it on our YouTube channel, just in case you want to know all of the factors that will be influencing who gets what, in the 10th Assembly. From there, let's flip to the Nigerian News Direct. And there is good news here. As the lead story, Buhari approves 320 billion naira intervention fund for public tertiary institutions. I hope this stems the tide of strikes, in 2023. And let's take a look at the riders. Each university to get 1.15 billion naira. Polytechnic, 699.3 million naira. College of Education, 800.9 million naira. Some highest since inception. That statement is ascribed to TET Fund Executive Secretary. Just one more of the riders before we exit. I believe our time is far spent now. Says 1.702 trillion naira disbursed as education tax collection to institutions in 8 years of Buhari. So how well has that been spent? A big question there. Let's leave it there for the Nigerian News Direct. And I believe this pretty much sums it up for the newspaper review segment. There's so much to, unfold on the program today. So stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
All right, let's turn our attention to something that is playing out in Plateau State. You know how there's a lot of talk about the National Assembly, the leadership at the National Assembly. I know someone who says, well, you know that Nigeria actually has at least, 37 presidents, and that cuts across. It's talking about not just the president at the national level, but the states as well. So it's important to pay attention to what's happening at the states, because he believes that the 36 state governors are presidents themselves in some sense. So we're turning our attention to the Plateau State House of Assembly, and you may have seen our guests this morning. Just yesterday we got news that the police actually sealed the assembly complex to forestall a breakdown of law. It's something that has been brewing since 2021, and it just heightened some more earlier this week. So let's get into it. What exactly is going on in that area? As you may have seen earlier on, we're joined on the program by Honorable Abok Ayuba, who is a reinstated Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly. And right next to him is Honorable Daniel Lanlong, who's a Majority Leader, Plateau State House of Assembly. Both of them join us via Zoom this morning. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on the program. I'll just get right into it and begin with Honorable Ayuba. Now, this has been a long time coming. There was a controversy about your impeachment as far back as October 2021. This case was taken to court. You petitioned both your party, the caretaker committee. You even petitioned some others, just trying to, get a headway. But the courts have decided now. 2 decisions made in a space of 2 days, but just get us to understand, right after you got the first judgment that reinstated you, what exactly played out? Because we understand that now the assembly has been sealed. So what part or what role did you play right after that court decision reinstating you?
Well, good morning, viewers, and thank you for giving us this audience this morning. Let me start by saying that aside from the judgment that was granted by the High Courts number 7, there's no any other judgment again. The judgment was a declarative judgment which we executed that very day. The second day I invited members of the House of Assembly, which we went to the House of Assembly, went to the chambers, and we
Go ahead, Honorable. All right, not to worry. We'll try to get connection back with both gentlemen, just to give you a sense of what's playing out. But let's bring in Honorable Nanlong. I imagine that there's an audio difficulty with Honorable Ayuba Abok. But Honorable Nanlong, you are the Majority Leader in the State Assembly, and you've stayed back even right after the whole debate and controversy around his impeachment. The court has decided now, saying that that impeachment was actually not done the right way. You were a part of that, so I imagine that you agree with the court, even though there's a talk about an appeal and a stay of execution. But he says there has been nothing regarding that. So tell us your side, at least.
Thank you very much, and thank you, viewers. It gladdens my heart that I have this opportunity to clear the air so that people must not go out there with misinformation that will lead to a lot of argument in the court of public opinion. To be honest with you, I expect Abok, the former speaker, who is supposed to be a lawyer, should be able to know the difference between a declaratory judgment and an executory judgment. In the entire judgment, it is clearly an executory judgment. And he has not, in a very clear time, he has not executed that judgment because he is not the sheriff, neither is he who have executed the judgment. But let us put that one aside. I think Nigerians need to know the truth about this current political impasse and legal impasse. First and foremost, yes, we agreed as a house that unknown to us that there was a case that was going on. because to the best of my knowledge, as a defender in that court, in that case, I am supposed to be served. I have not been informed, neither is the House informed that there was any judgment that was, any case that was going on. But of course, the court has made her decision. We were in the House of Assembly when Honorable Abok came in and addressed press. And he said that he has been reinstated. And because we are law-abiding, that is why we didn't want to take anything that will appear as if it is unlawful. But for his appearance in the State House of Assembly that day is a complete trespass, because Honorable Abok ceased to be a member on the 22nd of March 2022, when after his impeachment as the Speaker, and of course he was a member of the House of Assembly, but later he defected from APC to PDP. And the Constitution is very clear about his position as at that time. Section 109, subsection 1G of the 1999 Constitution is very clear about it, that once a person who was sponsored by another party, before the expiration of his tenure, if he decided to defect to another party, the Constitution is very clear. His seat will be declared vacant, and the House of Assembly, through the procedures that took place on that day, his seat was declared vacant. And as I speak to you now, you can only be a member of the House of Assembly before you can lay claim to even the speakership. So what is happening today, even though when the judgment came, as a law-abiding citizen, and of course, like I always say, that we are product of the law, and we must respect due process.
Oh dear. Well, we lost you for a moment there. Can you hear me, Honorable Nanlong?
I can hear you.
Okay, please go ahead. We lost you momentarily there. Please go on.
Yes. An appeal and also a state of execution. So as far as this judgment and the appeal that we have instituted, it is only a common ground in law that the status quo must be maintained. And as it stands today, he is not the Speaker of Plateau State House of Assembly, neither is he a member of the State House of Assembly.
So just to be clear, you are aware of that judgment, because it sounded like you were saying you were not aware in the first place, but you are aware of that judgment right now.
Yes, it came to us when our attention was called upon that there was a judgment in Court 7. And to the best of our knowledge as a house, nobody was aware of that judgment, or even that case. Because I could remember vividly that after his impeachment, the house sat. We agree, we took a position among ourselves that we must go together as a body.
Okay, Honorable, just a moment. I just wanted to establish whether you are now aware of that court judgment or not, but you've said now you are. But let's take it back to Honorable Ayuba Abok. He's back now. And I'd like you to speak to some of the issues raised by Honorable Nanlong and land on the point you were making earlier on. Basically, he's talked about your seat being vacant because you've since left the APC for the PDP, and he's also spoken about that particular judgment, whether it's executory or not. So I'd like you to respond to that, then we can move on.
Well, thank you. You know, he's not a lawyer. I would have preferred this argument to be with a lawyer who understood the routement of the courts. You know, there's nothing like executory judgment. It's a declaratory judgment, which the declaratory judgment, you take execution immediately. Lawyers, I know lawyers on these channels are watching us, they know what I'm speaking. And that execution took place that very day. We went to that house, and we made a press statement that very day. The second day, we went with our members to the chambers and we said, and that judgment, as far as the law concerned, that judgment has been executed. The second one, he said that my seat was declared vacant. I don't know when the House of Assembly started interpreting the laws. We are lawmakers, we don't interpret the laws. If actually I left the party for another party, the first thing the House of Assembly needed to do is to take me to court, for the court to interpret that section. And once the court interpret and find me faulty, then the court will now declare my seat vacant before the House of Assembly will take charge. And who declare my seat vacant is the illegal speaker. That is the illegal speaker. So illegality upon illegality. That impeachment was done by 8 members of the House of Assembly. And the majority leader here is just a majority leader of the party. He doesn't know anything. Nobody is going to serve him. He is not a presiding officer. Judgment was served to the clerk of the House and the legal department of the House. And the legal department of the House participated in the court in defense of that illegality. And there was no any defense because they don't have any defense in the court. They didn't file anything that has to do with defense in the court. The lawyers of the Ministry of Justice were there, and that is why the judgment is a declaratory judgment. And I could have loved to argue with someone that I know he has the background of the law. Majority leader doesn't know anything about the law. He will just be beating around the bush. I could have preferred the Commissioner of Justice is the one I'm speaking with right now. I'm telling you, we were invited by the Commissioner of Police yesterday, and we went as law-abiding citizens of Plateau State. We went and met him. We had a very lengthy discussion with him, and he said that notice of appeal have been served to us, so that our judgment has been vacated. We told him, notice of appeal has nothing to do with stay of execution. After all, this judgment has been executed. We showed him the evidence of our sittings, the video, and I know you have the videos. You even showed the videos that we were in the chambers, and we had our normal sitting as law-abiding citizens, as honorable members of the House of Assembly. So I'm inviting my...
Pardon me, just quickly, yes, you're saying that there has been no stay of execution.
There's nothing like stay of execution. Nobody would even grant declaratory judgment. Nobody will grant a stay of execution in the declaratory judgment. Nobody will issue that thing they call a stay of execution was typed in the office of the Attorney General of the state and was printed there. Check it. No court. They must have to go to that court that gave that judgment. It's the judge that will give the stay of execution. They have not gone there. Judges day before yesterday were in Government House for the swearing in of the new judges. And yesterday, no any judge said. So we were with the Commissioner of Police to brief him on the happening. Let him not take laws into his hand.
All right.
That laws, we make laws for him.
All right. Pardon me, so that we can just touch on the major issues in the space of a time we have. Let me go to Honorable Nanlong. We'll still talk about the outcome of your meeting with the Commissioner of Police and of course, the way forward. But Honorable Nanlong, regarding this case still, so he says there's been no stay of execution, that yes, maybe a notice of appeal has been instituted, but not a stay of execution. And I wonder, because you were part of the impeachment in 2021, if the court has said that this is what should be done, would you be standing in the way of the court?
Thank you very much. You see, I don't know whether the former speaker is assuming the position of a lawyer and a judge. And at the same time, he seems to be the court bailiff, the police, and he has almost assumed the position of everything to carry out the execution of a judgment, which he claimed that it was a declaratory judgment. It is quite unfortunate that even though I know that he has gone to university to read law, he is yet to go to the law school to appreciate some of these issues that we're discussing. But I would make it categorically clear that the judgment, which we as law-abiding citizens will respect, but as I speak to you, that judgment has not been executed because it is an executory judgment. He cannot define his layman understanding. Like I said, by the time he will go to law school and probably graduate from law school, he will come to agree with my position. We are not in dispute with any court. But what we are saying is that we have instituted an appeal and a stay of execution, which it means, therefore, that the status quo must be maintained. And if the status quo must be maintained, I said it in clear terms, that he is not even a member of the House of Assembly. The position of the law is very clear for defection. Like I said, he cannot be the lawyer and the judge at the same time. Let him go and look at section or 109, subsection 1G. Can he give me his position that says that the person must go to the court and the court will give interpretation before his seat is declared vacant? You see, that is why we want lawmakers who have the experience, who have built capacity over the years, who have appreciated what legal, development is all about. From the position he has posited, sir, let me be very clear to you that if he believes that his impeachment was wrongfully done, why didn't you go to the court to challenge him? 24 members of the Plateau State House of Assembly are the legitimate members. Only 2 members went to court on his behalf. If Abba feels pains that injustice was done to him, he is there, I challenge him. Why didn't he go to court? And do they have the local standing to even institute that case in the first place? He is a lawyer. Let him tell us.
Honorable Nanlong.
A judgment. He knows what to do. As a lawyer, he must go to the court because he is the direct beneficiary. He is the one who is being injured by the decision of the House of Assembly. So let us not go into one issue that will amount to an academic exercise. But he knows very well that he was rightfully impeached by 16 members of the Plateau State House of Assembly.
Honorable Nanlong, we'll get to that. Speak to the reinstated Speaker's claim that the stay of execution obtained was typed in the office of the Attorney General.
It's quite unfortunate that he appears to have a satellite where he can sit down and lay claim to things that maybe in his wildest imagination, he is getting it from the spirit. We don't know about that. No, I mean, it was the State House of Assembly that appealed the case. Why should we now go to the office of the Attorney General when we have the legal department? When we went to the same court, let him go and check the registry. My problem with him is that he cannot go and verify issues. He is telling you now that he has gone to the police commissioner to interpret the constitution to the commissioner of police. Is it by virtue of his experience, or is it by virtue of his legal experience that he is now interpreting the judgment or the order that police serve?
All right, you say that the reinstated Speaker was rightfully removed, but the report suggests that the parliamentary sitting during which he was removed held between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. and it's in contravention of Order 6 rule of the State House of Assembly. That's on the one hand. And on the second hand, the report suggests also that he was removed by 6 members of the State Assembly in contravention of the required 2/3 for the impeachment of a sitting Speaker.
Certainly that is not true. In fact, this issue we have already dealt with this issue long before now. There is no any House of Assembly in Nigeria that will go and sit around 6. Even if there are instances where if it has become a matter of urgent public importance, where the doctrine of necessity can be applied. But in the case of his impeachment, the House sat normal days that we normally sit as members. We took decision. The videos are there. Our records are with the clerk, and it has also been made available to all the 3 cases that were instituted in the court. You see, it is quite unfortunate that he is making this claim that he was not impeached by. Why didn't you go to court? If he was convinced that it was only 9 members who impeached him, why didn't he go to court? He knows the truth. The problem right now is that the PDP, who before now have deceived him, that if he joined them in the PDP, they are going to offer him a House of Representative ticket. But at the end of the day, they disappointed him. And today, they are also trying to use him to have a voice in the State House of Assembly, believing that they will obstruct a smooth transition from one civilian rule to another. All this that is happening is more political than the real issues that we're talking about. So he should be able to tell you, why didn't you go to court? Why are two members, if we were not up to 16, why didn't other members join along or go along with the two members to that case? It was only two members. So to tell you that the majority of the members who are in the State House of Assembly are in conformity, are in agreement, have subjected their leadership to Right Honorable Yakubu Sanda. It tells you that the House is not in division. What is happening today is the two PDP members who decided to go to the court, unknown to us, and whatever they have done is just they are playing to the gallery in order to appease the intentions and the situations that the PDP have found themselves on the plateau. Because this government has a legacy of maintaining peace and order. This government has an unprecedented achievement across the state. And because we are planning to go around and show Nigerians what this government has done by way of commissioning our project, the moment they saw the timetable came out, and they are trying to use him as a tool in order to cause distraction. But he knows I challenge him, why didn't you go to court? You ask him there.
Honorable Nalong, if I may come in now, I wanted to just, you've talked about him going to court. I imagine that part of the reason why we're having this conversation is that a matter has been taken to court, and 2 years after this matter was taken to court, a judgment has been given. The Plateau State House of Assembly is already winding down. I imagine that by June, July at the latest, your matters should be completely wrapped up in the Plateau State House of Assembly for this particular tenure, for another, set of legislators to take over. And I know that part of the reason why the former speaker was said to have gone to court was that he's asking the court to, he said, as Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly, by the vote, that his removal as Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly by the vote of less than 2/3 majority of the 24 members, which is 16 members of the Plateau State House of Assembly, was in violation of Section 92, subsection 2C of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Order 7, Rule 14 of the Plateau State House of Assembly, Standing Orders 2021, as amended. You can contradict this if it's not true. But then if this judgment is just coming out, just a moment, Honorable, if this judgment is just coming out 2 years after Honorable Abok was allegedly impeached, what exactly are you so afraid of? There's only how many months to the end or to the expiration of this particular assembly?
Let me clear the air also that his impeachment, we were able to satisfy every requirement of the law by having a 2/3 of the members who have signed for. Secondly, let me also, because in the judgment, they cited an example with Order 7, Rule 14, which was a document that, it was a review of the 8th Assembly to the 9th Assembly. Now, in that document, it only talks about financial misappropriation, where a committee will be set up to investigate the allegations. But in this case, the House did not accuse him of financial misappropriation. What we said was a gross conduct. Members of the House of Assembly who have endorsed his impeachment. So, Order 7, Rule 14 is not applicable in this instance. And also, that before we even move the motion for the impeachment, there was a motion to that effect, because in our standing rule, you will see that Order 1, Rule 8 clearly stated that where there is a need for a rule to be suspended, the House, through a resolution, can suspend that rule. which was what we applied. Order 7 Rule 14
you might be explaining, sorry to interrupt you, you can explain what is in your rule books. The fact of the matter, as is before journalists and as we have it before us, is that Honorable Abok took these matters to court, and a court has given judgment in his favor. I mean, you have a few months before the expiration of the tenure of your assembly. Why is it so difficult to abide by what it is that the court has said?
No, you see, we're talking about the law here, and we are respecters of the law. One thing I told you is that Honorable Abok did not go to court. It is Honorable Purifa and Honorable Watson that took the matter to court. Now, a judgment was, of course, received in that regard. And like I told you, already there is a state of execution, already there is an appeal instituted. So the police commissioner, which he was laying claim to, told him in clear terms that they are in receipt of a court decision, that is a motion of notice and the state of execution. They are in receipt, and they are to execute that which the court, the same court, has given that order. The question is, when it was in his favor, he hurriedly went to the House of Assembly.
Just hold your thoughts for a moment, Honorable Nalong. Let me go to Honorable Abok, because he's here and he can speak for himself. I'm sure he can clarify as to whether he was the one who went to court or that others went to court on his behalf. But Honorable, do you want to quickly speak to that? Did you go to court, or did other people go for you, or did you ask people to go in proxy for you? What was the situation?
Well, let me say this. Please, next time when you are inviting us to speak about issues that has to do with the Constitution, invite people that has knowledge on the Constitution, people that has a background of law, please. He's just contradicting himself. In the first, when he started speaking, he said he has no any knowledge of the judgment. Now he's speaking, he's reading what the judge gave in that court. He's just contradicting himself. We have how many cases? I file a case. I have a case with the High Court after when this one was instituted. Judgment was given. No matter what happened, the judgment has been given in my favor, and they must have to respect the constitutional court of this country. When he's speaking, you know, he's speaking totally out of point. Totally out of point. He's speaking like someone that doesn't know anything about has any background about it being his own house rule. So I don't know. I find it very, very difficult to argue with someone that doesn't have a background of law. Let me tell you one thing here. There's nothing like executory judgment in the first place. Please, I want my colleague to know there's nothing like executory judgment. It's declaratory judgment. Execution took place immediately. Well, once there's a declaratory judgment, the execution takes place immediately. If you don't know it, go back and ask your lawyer so that he will clarify you on that. And that execution has taken place. We went to the court. Once we went to the House of Assembly and we have served. We passed even a bill in that house that day for third reading. So if this person is saying that he's not aware of that judgment, to me, and he's the same person that said he has no knowledge of that judgment, and he's the same person that is reading that judgment again, he's just contradicting himself because he has no any background of even his own house rule. He cannot even defend his own house rule. Who's supposed to suspend the rules of the house? Is the speaker. I have not assigned that duty to anybody. And before now, the speaker is the only person that has the right to call for sitting and to adjourn the sittings of every house. If I have an engagement, I will call the clerk in the front of the members of the House Assembly in the chambers to tell them that I have been relinquished my powers to the deputy speaker for him to continue with the sittings. So when I find it so difficult to be talking to someone that doesn't even know what he's speaking about.
Honorable Ayuba, if I may come in here, you told us that you don't want to argue with someone who's not a lawyer. So let's leave the legal terms and come down to the layman's English and see what exactly is the situation here. You were speaker. Your members impeached you, and he says for gross misconduct, not because of embezzlement of funds or anything or misappropriation, gross misconduct. That is an argument that a lot of people have had. What exactly makes up gross misconduct? That's something that needs to be explained. And now the courts have reinstated you, and the House is saying, I mean, the majority leader there is saying that they don't want you. What is the situation? What's the way forward? They've gone to appeal. They say there's a stay of execution. What exactly is going on, especially for the people that you all represent in Plateau State?
Okay, first, the same majority leader came into the same television station to say that I was charged with a misappropriation last time. If you still have that record when he came, you can play it for the people of the public to see. And today he says gross misconduct. That definition lies in his hand. I don't know what he means by that. But let me tell you that the judgment has been obtained and nobody is above the law. Judgment has been obtained and that judgment has been executed. We went to the Commissioner of Police yesterday. We gave him every briefing with his lawyers and my own lawyers. My own lawyers argued it in his own presence and showed him all the evidence. I don't even know why police are taking side in this matter. This is democracy. You should allow us to do our things peacefully. The legislative arm of government usually, is always on a rancor. So allow us to go to the House if Nalong knows that the so-called speaker is still the speaker. Let him come to the House of Assembly. Let us have our argument there in the House of Assembly. Not to be inviting for the Commissioner of Police because you have the governor in your own side. You use the Commissioner of Police by telling him to barricade this, barricade that, do this, do that. No, what we are saying is this. We have the judgment. And there's nothing like stay of execution.
Did the Commissioner of Police tell you anything about the stay of execution?
His lawyers served him with the notice of stay of execution. Get it right. Notice of stay of execution, not stay of execution. Notice of stay of execution. I told him, I said, okay, we have seen the notice. The notice is not an order. The judge has not even seen that notice. Talk more to grant it. You understand?
Yes.
I told him we still have the judgment. The judgment is still in effect because until the judge grant that stay of execution, and the judge cannot contradict herself. This is a declaratory judgment. A declaratory judgment means that there was no defense. Nobody filed a defense. Their lawyers were there in the court trying to defend. There was no anything defense. That was why the judge gave a declaratory judgment.
Okay, Mr. Iba,
in a declaratory judgment, you cannot come back again.
There are a couple of things here.
The judge cannot grant you. The judge cannot grant you the opportunity to file to file a stay of execution because it's a declaratory judgment.
Okay, Mr. Iba, we would get Mr. Nanlong to talk about the declaratory judgment or stay of execution, but you've been told. Mr. Nanlong says that you are not even a member of the House because going by the law, your seat had been declared vacant after you left the party to the opposition. And so you cannot even be claiming to be a Speaker of the House when you're not a member of the House. Okay,
I have addressed that issue. The House of Assembly have no right to interpret the Constitution. Who gave them the right to say that they declared my seat vacant in the first place? What the APC needed to do is to go to court and file a suit against me that I have left their party. I got elected in their party and I left the party for another party. Then the court will decide. The court will decide. I must have to defend myself in the courts. This one, there's no fair hearing. Someone would just go to the House of Assembly and say, I have declared the seat of this person vacant without any. The only thing the House has the right of doing is to suspend to suspend a member.
Okay, let me put this question out to the both of you. Let me put this question out to the both of you, because when the both of you came into this race, both of you in 2019, for instance, both of you came in there to represent your constituents. And right now, the people you're there to represent will be wondering how you're serving them if this back and forth is going on. You've been in court. The court has said, okay, return. The members in the State Assembly are saying that no, that they have a stay of execution, or they've gone to court to appeal. They have a right of appeal, so to speak. And the police has shut down the House of Assembly because they do not want any chaos in that area. How would this matter be resolved quickly for the purpose of serving the people that elected you guys into the State Assembly?
First, let me tell you this. First, let me tell you this. They are very, very phony of using the police. During the impeachment, the purported impeachment saga, they went and invited the AIG to come to Plateau States to barricade that House of Assembly. The AIG called the two factions, myself and the so-called speaker, for us to meet and resolve our issues. And before we know it, the then Commissioner of Police stopped us from going to the House of Assembly and let them in without resolving the issues. As law-abiding citizens of Nigeria, what we did was to go to court to challenge that impeachment. We didn't follow them with any fight. So we went to the competent court of the constitution of this country. We went and seek redress, and today the redress has been given to us. I expect them to respect that. We barely have 2 months in office. So if they like, let them continue to be doing this. I have been away for 1 year, 7 months. So I don't care at this short time. I will continue to fight. I will stay there. I am the speaker, and if the speaker attempt to go there, we will order for his arrest, because that is contempt of court. He has been duly served. He has been duly served, and he has been briefed by the lawyers of the House of Assembly. He has been explained. The explanation has been given to him in full. He knows the law. They should go to the Court of Appeal and challenge the judgment of the High Court. That is the only option left to them. They don't have any option aside from that.
Honorable Abok, during the impeachment saga, reports were to the effect that you had a huge fallout with your principal, the governor, and that was at the heart of your impeachment. But there are also reports to the effect that you're being investigated by the EFCC. A certain group, Youth Rights Against Corruption, signed a petition against you, accusing you of gross financial misconduct, criminal breach of public trust, and abuse of office. The group said this action was necessitated by popular demand. How do you defend yourself against this allegation? Honorable Abok, the question is for you.
Thank you that you brought this. Thank you that you brought financial misconduct on your region now. Thank you that you brought it. And he's the same person that is saying that there's nothing like financial misconduct in that issue. Let me tell you this. We have a constitutional divide between myself and the governor. I am a legislator, he's an executive. I will work as an executive, he will work as I will work as a legislator, and he will work as an executive. And my work is to defend the country, to pass the laws, and of course defend the constitution of this Federal Republic. I have no issue with my governor. My governor is my principal. I respect him so much. And there was nothing. There were just rumors with this set of people that are arguing now on the television, telling him lies against me. Impeachment, if the governor thinks that I was trying to impeach him, impeachment is not done in just a single day. It has a process. So why will I attempt to even say that we are trying to impeach the governor, or we are not having any conflict? But they went and incited the governor, speak with the governor against me, and trying to bring a kind of conflict between the two of us. And again, going to EFCC, EFCC is everybody can write to the EFCC based on his one Today I'm free. You can see me live and direct here in the television.
Okay.
That means there was nothing like that. I went and defended myself in the FCC, and the FCC saw no reason to hold me. There's nothing. Myself and the majority leader were there in the FCC. He was in the FCC too.
All right. Well, let's get Honorable Nalong's final thoughts on this, especially his response to Neota's question as we wind down in less than 2 minutes. Incidentally, the majority leader, you lost your re-election bid. The speaker lost his re-election bid. Even Honorable Abok tried to, make that run for the National Assembly. It didn't work out. 2 months to the end of this assembly. Just a moment. Can you hear me now, Honorable Nanlong? I was saying that, incidentally now, you lost your re-election bid, the Speaker lost his re-election bid, even Honorable Abok tried to make a run for the National Assembly, didn't quite work out, and you have 2 months to the end of the State Assembly. What is the way forward for you? Would you be looking for maybe some sort of reuniting so that you can work for the good of the people? Don't forget that the people of Plateau elected you to do the work for them. And that's in addition to your response to Neota's question. That's for Honorable Nanlong.
He's out.
Honorable Nanlong, can you hear me? Okay. Well, I think he's out. Well, I think we'll just wind down on that note. Honorable Nanlong has since been knocked out of the conversation, but I think we've presented some insight into what's going on. I'll be giving updates to Nigerians in the coming days. But I'd like to thank you so much, gentlemen. Honorable Abok Ayuba, who's a reinstated Speaker, Plateau State House of Assembly, as well as Honorable Daniel Nanlong, the Majority Leader, Plateau State House of Assembly. Thank you so much for your time on the program. We'll take a moment now, and when we turn our attention to a very, very important topic, not just for today, but for the future of our nation. That's the moment. Stay with us.
The challenge of out-of-school children has continued to be an issue of concern in northern Nigeria, especially among the girl child, with majority dropping out of school after completion of junior secondary school education, either for marriage or hawking in the streets. The record of over 700,000 out-of-school children across Yobe State in the last 3 years was associated with ignorance, poverty, as well as the insecurity due to the abduction of boarding female students in some parts of the northeast. But the state government, which believes that establishing senior day girls secondary schools in some major cities would minimize the out-of-school children, especially among the girl child, first visited the Emir of Bade, Abubakar Suleiman, to seek support before inaugurating one of the schools in Gashua.
So today marks another very beautiful success and milestone in the history of education in Yobe State. The senior girls day secondary school is now a reality. You can see that from day one, the principal registered 250, and she gave admission to 800 students. Actually, people of Yobe State have been yearning to see this day.
While some officials appreciate the gesture, the Emir of Bade Emirate is advocating the reintroduction of at least one teachers training college to ensure that only qualified teachers teach at the primary and secondary schools.
Most of us, we had that privilege. Today, it's no more there. So we are appealing to the state government to at least open, even if it's one teachers training college, so that the teacher, we want a teacher to answer the word teacher, not just by be a teacher. Most of our teachers now cannot give you a good lesson plan.
Our people of the community are in need of this school, this type of school, and we got it. And we really know that our people are going to perform, our children are going to perform better. My call is to the parents is to bring their children to the school, please.
Although relative peace appears to have returned to the northeast, with the establishment of the 8 schools, the government is optimistic that the problem of out-of-school children due to early marriage would be averted, resulting in increased school enrollment. And that's what we'll be looking at today, the matter of out-of-school children, Maupe.
Indeed, and we're being joined right now by Mrs. Miriam Owais, who's Special Advisor to the President on Social Investment, and is a national lead of the At-Risk Children Program, the ARC-P. Ma'am, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this matter of out-of-school children is certainly something that, gives a lot of people concern. And people are wondering, are we really taking this matter, are we treating it with the seriousness with which it really deserves to be treated? When we continue to hear figures between UNESCO and UNICEF, there is usually a disparity in terms of the number of the out-of-school children that we have. But whether you go with UNESCO's figures or whether you go with UNICEF's figures, those figures are significantly, or you even go with the federal government's figures. I think the federal government puts it at about 7.5 million.
10 million.
You have 10 million for UNICEF, you have 20 million for UNESCO. We're talking about children in the millions not getting an education. Are we treating it with the seriousness it deserves?
Well, the federal government is really trying to address these challenges, but there are very many issues that need to be, considered and addressed. For me personally, it's beyond just an education. These children have been out on the streets without any structures around them. So we need to also be looking at their mental health. We should be looking at skills for those who actually are resistant. Their parents, all of us are the products of the decisions our parents took when we were very young. We didn't have a choice. A lot of their parents, for one reason or the other, cultural reasons or even the high unemployment rate, feel that their children would be better off going into skills rather than going through school, because you go into school and you come out and you don't have a job and you're not even wired to be an entrepreneur. So there are many reasons why, and I think government is trying to see how we can put all of this together, because children that come from homes and are in schools don't have the same challenges as children who have been out there for years, maybe looking for food, being exposed to all kinds of vagaries. I think we should be more holistic about how we address these issues. I agree with you that the numbers are really large, but there are many issues, as I said, and even structural issues. When an elected official gets into government, more interested in seeing what is tangible and pointing at something and saying, this is my legacy. And so if you budget for education, for instance, at the state level, they tend to go for, the money tends to go, most of it goes to infrastructure. But there are other issues that are just as critical. And I'm not downplaying infrastructure. We need more infrastructure. But we need to look at the security issues, the poverty issues, the training of teachers. There's so many other issues that you can't point at and say this is the problem, So you can build a really nice school in a poor community and there'll be no teachers. Children would go hawking and to the farm because the parents are poor. So unless we address these other underlying issues that actually compound the problem, we won't have full classrooms. And so in a 4-year term, a lot of public officials don't want to say, we want to see measurement of performance, and 3 years, 4 years is when the results come out.
So the politics of it is not to encourage it.
No. We must find a way of highlighting and making visible these other softer issues. That's what I'm saying.
I recall having a conversation towards the end of last year. The Speaker of the House of Representatives convened some sort of conference. He wanted to talk about tertiary education, and one of the people he invited was the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who believed that the conversation should have started instead from the basic level. And the way he underscored that is the fact that when children are not educated, that you have deprived that person the ability to be able to contribute meaningfully as a Nigerian to the society. The impact of, mentioning something like that, the import of something as basic as education to the contribution of any individual to national life was really, I think really stood out for me in that presentation. And I think that that's perhaps one of the reasons why when the APC was coming on board, people were quite optimistic about some of the welfarist program it had. There was a school feeding program. I know it's no longer under your purview now. It's now within the humanitarian ministry. But there have been big questions as to how come it is that, in spite of all of these interventions, there seems to be very little progress recorded vis-a-vis the numbers that we're still recording out of school.
Well, I mentioned those two other issues, but you see, we have a population that's growing much faster than our economy. And we're not actually targeting those issues that, are increasing the numbers. There's so many disparities. And so one of the reasons why we started ARCP is we need to be more strategic about what it is that's causing these numbers. And so it's important for us to get the monitoring in, to get the causative factors being given back as feedback. And right now we're under the National Bureau of Statistics, so they can actually analyze the trends and be able to address the issue. I'll give you a small example. I was in one state, I won't say which state, but it's a northern state, and I saw like 13 children playing, and I asked them, why? You're old enough to be in school, none of them were beyond 13. And I asked them, why aren't you in school? Oh, we dropped out of school. What are you doing? Oh, I'm pushing a wheelbarrow in the market. Oh, I'm hawking. Oh, I'm different things. And they all have aspirations as young children. I want to own a stall in the market for the one that pushes a wheelbarrow. And why aren't you in school? Oh, we've been asked to pay 80 naira in our schools as a parent's levy or something like that, Now, if we can get that information coming from all the communities, or that being the most prevalent reason why children are dropping out, it's something we can tackle the state government on, because these are hidden levies, and they actually impact on the ability of children to engage. The parents said they can't pay that 80 naira. So this is a poverty issue, but it's also an issue that we need to engage the states with and the schools with. And the schools belong to the states. So it's not something the federal government can do, but it can engage the state governor to say, why is this happening? Do you realize that maybe 70% of the children not in school in Sokoto or in Kedbi or in Yobe are not in school because there's this levy?
Yeah, sorry, Nyota, while that might be an issue, some people also say it might also be a matter of will. Because you have to ask, for instance, that young boy who is wheeling a barrow in the market, I mean, how much is he possibly making? That, 80 naira will be an issue that, he couldn't maybe make and say, I'm going back to school. If that was, do people really understand the importance of education?
This takes me back to what I was saying. A lot of parents are not encouraged by what they see, And, without being apologetic, there's a lot of things that have happened over time, especially in the north, and the way the Islamic education and the Malams were they had the rug pulled up from under their feet because they believed that they were doing well. They used numbers in Arabic. They used alphabets in Arabic, and then Western education comes in, and then no, you're wrong. You need to start writing from the other side on the right instead of on the left, and you can't even negotiate in the market for your products because you've got it all wrong. So there's a hostility, not necessarily because of the faith, but because they've lost space or productivity. You understand? So there's a resistance to this. And these are the people who hold, they decide for the children whether they go to school or not. We have to find a way of engaging them, getting them to understand that children need to thrive with formal education. And this is why we're doing a lot of foundational literacy in the communities, because they want skills with no, there's no objection to us teaching how the children can become productive, right? But we tell them the children can't sell their products if they don't understand numbers, if they can't speak, they don't understand how two letters form words. You understand? So they say, okay, we agree for foundational literacy. Now, in the first state we started, we have over 3,600 children who are ready to go back to school because you've introduced them to this thing and they understand and they're stimulated and they want to engage with formal schools. Now, the other side of it, of course, is whether we have the infrastructure, whether we have the teachers, whether we have all of that needs to come together for these children. But it's really critical for us to be more open about engaging these people and ensuring, even incentivizing them, because they say I don't take my son to the farm. He goes to school and he comes out, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have the farm. I've had that said to me directly in one of the communities. What do you expect me to do? You want me to not have him do the skill in the family when at the end of the day, we're not encouraged by what we see? I'm sure you meet, even in the profession, journalism, people who have gone through school but can't write sentences. It's very discouraging. So it's an overhaul, but it's not us. It's the education system, which is a different conversation altogether.
I was going to ask you what changed. There was a time when children went to school, gained the skills, as in they learned to manage the farm, and still went ahead to get some formal education. So what changed?
Well, as I said, it's a whole lot of things. I'm not here to say this is what happened, but I know that the rising unemployment rate has really impacted on the decisions that the parents take on whether, what path the child should. But government needs to intervene, because government needs to make them understand that it's not the same thing. We make a lot of, it's very easy to be flippant and say children should, Almajiri, for instance, is wrong, but many of us, elite, send our children to Abuja or to Lagos or to wherever it is that we believe the learning is better, right? This is their own thinking, I believe, including the poverty, of course, that the teaching in Maiduguri, the Malam in Maiduguri, has better teaching methods, he has better knowledge. The only way we can resolve this is if we improve the learning around us. Trying to get the skills in, trying to get the foundational literacy and numeracy in, stimulate the learning, get digital learning, get sports. For a parent that has never been exposed to technology, government needs to introduce technology, because we know children pick up the phone and they're playing away with it. So leaving it to the parent won't say the child should do technology, but because government knows what is available and what is possible, government needs to come in and try and encourage this to happen, and also incentivize the parents and improve the learning.
Before our colleagues in Lagos have some questions, but before we do that, you've talked about incentivizing education, not just about the parents here. Where would that begin? Earlier you mentioned the child who couldn't pay 18 naira to stay in school. Many. Yeah. So that is one issue altogether. The fees, the hidden fees in a space that is supposed to be free. Many of the governments will tell you, I'm not aware of that. How could it be that this is happening? I'm not aware. And then you have the issue of the parents. So what kind of incentives should the parents be should be expecting? And how would that even happen?
So, for instance, in our P, what we do is for girls that hawk, right? The states tell us who is vulnerable, who is out of school in their jurisdiction. And if they give us, they select hawkers as one of their vulnerable groups, we say give us the names of the mothers, the data of the mothers, their phone numbers, their geolocations. And we bring them into workshops in the communities, nutrition, building them up, giving them even poultry. That's in the pipeline. It's almost going to happen. Because they're going to be losing money if the girls don't go out to hawk. So they're going to push back. So we want them to understand that if you still push this girl out to hawk and not let her remain in learning hubs, then you're going to be taken off this program, and it's been very, encouraging, the warmth, the way they've embraced, the idea that they can be, there's financial literacy, there's the different packages we're bringing forward, and we're working with agencies in government to try and enhance their knowledge and to create sort of productivity for them, options for productivity. So the Primary Healthcare Development Agency is helping us with health and nutrition training in the communities. We're doing clean cooking, so that they don't waste time and get all the different respiratory issues. I'm sure you know what happens with firewood and deforestation. And we're doing things that will attract the women, making briquettes from rice husks, so that at least they understand that they can actually make money and let the girl remain in a learning hub. Yeah.
Well, I'm a little curious. So I don't think we've spoken enough. We've spoken in general terms about what the problems are,
yes,
and education. The reason why it's important for basic education to be taken up as a very important discussion. But what I would like to know is what the ARCP is doing about this. What impact would you say that you have had since the establishment of the program?
Well, it's a 2-year, we've been there for 2 years now, and what we're doing actually is training young people who don't have jobs, because that's for us is a resource, who live in the communities, so they speak the language, they understand the culture. We train them across 7 pillars, skills, entrepreneurship. We do a very fast 2-week skills needs assessment, what is beneficial and viable as against what is popular. So for instance, tailoring for women is just the stereotype. But in many poor communities, they don't have customers. So they're given a sewing machine, they don't have. So we have all kinds of things coming out, traditional medicine, how we can do moringa in powder and all of that, creating niches for themselves, Then we do sports, because that teaches life skills, and we have support from UNODC. We do the skills entrepreneurship from the National Board for Technical Education, ITF. We do paralegal training, because there's a lot of SGBV that happens in the communities, and the children are up the creek without a paddle, because they don't know cultural issues. All things come in, and the child can't access justice. We do security awareness for the young people, so they're able to nip communal conflicts and not carrying arms, but knowing where to report when these things start. We do digital skills. There's so many things, renewable energy, waste to wealth. We take partners from federal and development partners and the state government. We train them across these different skills for 3 weeks, and then we assign 50 children each to them, because it's beyond enrollment. They enroll and they drop out. You understand? So we're trying to make them mentors for these children. And so they have a responsibility every month, after seeking parental consent or the guardian's consent, to work with these children. The state sets up interim community hubs, and then training goes on for about 6 to 9 months, depending on what the skill is. They now learn. If the child doesn't turn up, you have a responsibility to go to the child's home and find out why. And every month you report back on those children that are under your custody, right? And that is the information that sort of lets us know that you're working, and then we pay you 30,000 naira, which is minimum wage, from Abuja directly to your account. And then beyond the 9 months, which is the maximum training period, you have a responsibility to put the children back into school. So you you negotiate with the parents, and you also ensure that they enroll and they remain in school. If they don't remain in school, you need to give us the reasons why. This is why we've moved to the National Bureau of Statistics, because they are able to analyze the trends. And we're looking, I mean, we have a budget line for consultants who will now, if it's security issues, for instance, send it to the NSA's office or to the security advisor in the state. These are the reasons why children are not going to school. And
how many children would you say have been trained so far?
The youth facilitators is what we call them. Almost 5,000.
5,000 youth facilitators.
Yes, we're in 8 states.
The children in their hubs.
The children, so each one has 50 children.
50 children, so
yes.
Just multiply that by 50.
Yes, by 50.
Okay, let's quickly take this conversation now to Lagos. I know Bukola has questions for you.
Yes, thank you, Maokwe. Mrs. Uwais, you've touched briefly on, the subject I'm headed for, but I just want to put it in proper context now. Just days ago, the FCTA authority had cause to send back about 217 destitute, I believe, to Katsina State and other states. And this pretty much supports the trend of, migration from the north down south. And so when you see out-of-school children in the southern part of the country, you know that, by merely looking at them, that they're not indigenous to that particular area, that they're coming from the north. So, and this swells the numbers of out-of-school children in the south as well. And we wonder if, as a result of this trend, government and agencies like yours are just treating the symptoms rather than the root cause of, the numbers of out-of-school children, which is the Alamajiri system. Don't you think that northern leaders should, as a result, sit down and have an honest conversation about this, particular, religious factor that fuels the numbers of out-of-school children across the country?
Well, it's interesting that they're moving to the south, because this is not about knowledge. This is about skills. This is about learning trades now, and I would say that it is a responsibility for Nigerians, and especially the federal government and the state governments, not necessarily northern leaders, because these children can move anywhere and live anywhere and, become productive or become dangerous, depending on where in Nigeria. I think we should stop thinking of it as being a particular, it's the problem of a particular region, because we don't have any borders that actually stop you from moving from one place to the other. But it's important for us to acknowledge that government has to work with the states, and the states have to lead. The states have the mandate under the Constitution on primary health care, on primary education. Mental health for me is critical, but we keep talking about education. Education is important, but we also need to look at the way these children are being traumatized or have been traumatized, and how they can actually disrupt issues, anything that you start that's legitimate. So I feel what the government can do, the federal government can do, is coordinate, share learnings, ensure standards are there, and then, of course, get the states to sit up. We've left it to the states all this time. I've heard people saying, there was last week, there was a Almajiri Commission hearing, and people were saying another agency, and by the way, I'm not an agency. I work with the vice president. He's the one actually driving this. The agencies, there are many, they can be repealed, and we all know how they can become huge, and not a lot of the funding goes to the wrong, but we just need to do something. The federal government cannot continue to close its eyes to what UNESCO states. UNESCO is the highest number. It's 20 million, right? We can't close our eyes to it. It's Nigerian children. It's not just the states. So I think we all need to stop saying it's somebody else's responsibility. But I think really, it's our responsibility. Even outside government, I would continue to apply myself in this, because to this problem, because it is a huge problem, and these children are entitled as Nigerians to a future that is prosperous.
Yeah, but really, do you think any significant progress can be achieved without some form of regional approach to this problem through a social investment program, social security, attitudinal change to the problem of child marriage, for instance, at the sub-regional, at the subnational level, if governors come together? Okay, I'll take that again.
I lost you there. I agree that people who, I heard you say something about regional, right?
Yes.
People who understand the challenge need to work there, and I am from the north, I'm working there, but I'm not saying that, what I don't like is the idea of us saying it's somebody else's fault. There is no regional construct that can take on this. The states are recognized by the Constitution. So the states have a responsibility. Subnationals have the responsibility to do this work. Children, women, all those issues, human capital indices are at state level. But to say a region should take, what region, I know we say there's a northern region and a northern, but what's the construct? Who is in charge there? What's the governance platform there? How do we engage with the region? I think we need to place the responsibility on the states and get the states to align with what the federal government is offering. I made a presentation to NEC. The vice president, as chairman of NEC, the National Economic Council, asked me to speak to all the governors, and I did. So far, only 9 have asked me to come in and work with them. And interestingly, it is not just where the states are. The numbers are high. I'm in 2 southwest states. One of them has 92% children in school. But they're more concerned about the youth that drop out. The same thing, one of the eastern states, they have a lot of restless youth, and they want us to to offer their youth a lifeline, skills in an organized manner. And we're there. So it's not a matter of just Almajiri, it's a matter of what we see and how we can make this huge population productive, irrespective of whether they have degrees or secondary school education or whether or not they're ready to embrace the skills. And you find out, you have these mentors in the community. If an Ibrahim, for instance, has shown as he's growing that he loves animals, the mentor can actually guide that child into animal husbandry, because some of them tell you straight that I'm not interested in going to school. If you meet a child or youth at 16 or 17, what am I going back to school for?
Let me just come in quickly as we begin to wind down on this conversation. It's a very important one, really. It doesn't just concern our present situation as a nation, but our future as well. And I hope that the conversation is also trickling down to the local governments, because there's the LGEA, the UBEC, SUBEB, and all of that. But for the local governments, they have a major role to play in primary education, at least. And I don't know how much work is being done in that area. But please speak to this fact. What figure are you working with, the number of out-of-school children? Because I think the conversation started with that, disparity in the figures. So what are you working with, and why do we seem to have different figures of out-of-school children?
Every organization has its own methodology for coming up with out-of-school children. I've been working with the UBEC, the commission, UBEC, and they've been supporting us on primary education. They've actually paid for some of the training that goes on. It's a very huge problem, and it's not something, as I said, that we can point at an impact in a day or 2 or even in a year. We've been working for 2 years, and we're very happy with what we see is unfolding. Now, to your question, what was it that he really wanted? Because this is not really working. Yeah, what was his question?
Kaede, can you come back in? Because
in Neota, thank you. I'm asking specifically.
Go ahead, Coyote.
There's a disparity, there are different figures depending on who you ask. So what figure are you working with in some of the interventions that you've come up with? What particular figure? Is it 10 million, 12 million, 20 million?
As I have said earlier, the numbers differ. They vary depending on which organization. And we're working with UNICEF, UNODC, and UBEC. Everybody has their figures. What we have decided to do is work with the communities and take 50 times 50. So we have 50 youth in every local government that are assigned 50 children for a period of 9 months, and then another 50 come in. So we're growing the numbers from there, and it's we're in 9 states, 6 of which are in the north: Borno, Gombe, Sokoto, Kaduna, Nasarawa, and Niger. And so these are if you count the number of local governments, I don't have my laptop in front of me and I'm not that young, the 50 per local government, male and female, and then 50 times 50. These are the numbers. I don't think, it would be very, very ambitious to say we're going to do 4 million or 5 million or 10 million. It's even going to set me back in terms of my own motivation or the motivation of our team. But what we want to do is to incrementally change the trajectory. And this is what we're working at.
So looking at the numbers, the numbers you've called out, 2,000, about 2,500,000, that's what you have right now. If you're looking at 500 youth mentors, and then 5,000 youth mentors, and each of them has 50 attached to them. You're talking about 50, you have about 2.5 million children that you're already dealing with at the moment, and you want to increase that number.
Yes, after 9 months, they move back, and then we take on another.
As we wind down here, let's look at what the political will is like in terms of support for these, because you're looking at these children, the vulnerable ones, who more or less have
no voice.
So what's the political support like in this state?
Well, there's a transition committee in. But what we're trying to do right now is to ensure that this is sustained. Because we've already started paying the youth facilitators, we've started getting the feedback, and it's very interesting. So we're working with an NGO to see how we can have a public-private partnership, because even the development partners are interested and they want to fund the NGO rather than government. Right? So we will have a budget that is right now in NBS. We don't handle money. NBS handles all our procurement and our payments, our disbursements, everything, the accounting, the National Bureau of Statistics, because that's where the analysis goes. But we're trying to ensure that for sustainability, we have this NGO, and then we have a public-private partnership, so that is sustainable beyond this. But at the end of the day, when we make a presentation to the transition committee, we will explain to them what's going. The decision is theirs, really. If we show them the numbers and the impact, it's up to them to decide whether to go this route or another route.
One would wonder, again, the sustainability of this program, because the government's winding down, the next government's coming, as you said, the transition committees are there. Is there a legal backing to ensure that this kind of a thing, this reach to these voiceless children, so that these numbers do not continue to go out there?
I just mentioned the Al-Majri Commission. They seem interested in what we're doing. But all of this, for now, is in a phase where it's very fluid. We're trying to structure this to ensure that there is sustainability. I don't want to make any claims that are not firm yet. But these are the discussions that are going on now, and I'm hoping that they will see that this is important. Beyond enrollment, there's a need for mentorship, and there's a need for mental health, and there's a need for all of this, so that even the youth have something to do, and they get jobs and we open up their opportunities too.
Well, we hope that we're able to speak with you again sometime soon, and we hope that the figures, maybe perhaps by the end of this year, will, reflect some of the work that, you have been doing. We have to thank you so much for coming on this morning. Miriam Owais, a special advisor to the President on Social Investment, and is a national lead at At-Risk Children Program, ARC-P. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise
Thank you so much
this morning.
for giving me this opportunity to engage.
Well, that's where we wrap up the program today. We thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
And I'm Neil Taigwe. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for sharing your morning with us. Remember to be the light. I am Bukola Koka.
And thank you so much for your feedback. Victor, Festus, Ejike Aguigo, all of them. Have a fantastic day. I'm Kayode Okikulu.